and welcome to On Location. This edition, Bowers Museum Grand Reopening. I'm your host, Fabie Combs. We're going to be going through the museum today and seeing some beautiful artifacts and treasures on display, as well as find out some interesting facts about the background of the museum. And now, the museum. There is a hushed excitement at the Bowers Museum of Cultural Art these days. You can feel it as you walk the corridors and galleries and even out into the beautiful tree-lined courtyard. The Bowers Museum of Cultural Art is a unique and dynamic institution that not only safeguards the rare and beautiful, but helps us understand one another in a rapidly changing world. With fascinating collections, state-of-the-art facilities, vigorous educational programs, and committed community support, the museum stands ready to meet the challenge of the future as it assumes its place as one of the nation's preeminent cultural art institutions. The museum's collections are accentuated by special exhibits from all over the world. The Bowers Museum of Cultural Art is dedicated to the preservation, study, and exhibition of the fine arts of indigenous peoples, focusing on the artworks of pre-Columbian, with a special exhibit from Bogota, Colombia, Tribute to the Gods, Treasures of the Museo de Oro, gold and ceramic from 300 BC through 1600 AD, with the museum's permanent collection. Arts of Oceania, Realm of the Ancestors, 18th through the 20th centuries, with wood, metal, rattan, bark, and feathers. It explores the masterworks from the highlands and caves of New Guinea, the desert outback of Australia, and the tropical islands of the open Pacific from Bowers' permanent collection. Arts of Native America, including basketry, ceramics, stone, beadwork, textiles, and featherwork, 1200 AD through the 20th century, with the museum retaining its commitment to California and Orange County history. African, Power and Creation, Africa Beyond the Nile, featuring wood, metal, ceramic, and beads, 19th through the 20th century, exposes the power and diversity of sculpture and other art forms originating in the diverse nations of Black America, another permanent collection. Pacific Rim Cultures, along with a special exhibition of Chinese art, masterpieces of the Chang Foundation, Taipei, Chinese ceramics and porcelains from 10 dynasties, 4000 BC through 1795 AD. The collections are irreplaceable windows into civilizations both past and present. The new Bowers Museum is 6 times its original size and includes a spacious restaurant overlooking the historic courtyard called the Indigo, with conference center and an enormous area for special exhibits. It is a guiding philosophy of the museum that learning about peoples through their arts will lead us to a greater understanding of ourselves and a fuller appreciation of the marvelous diversity of our world. I have the pleasure of standing next to the mayor of the city of Santa Ana, Mayor Dan Young. Dan, tell us a little bit about what's going through your mind right now at this grand reopening.
Well, we're really proud of what we've achieved here today. We're opening one of the great cultural institutions in the country, and we're just proud to have it located here in the city of Santa Ana. This has been a decade of a lot of work and a lot of contributions by both the public and the private sector. So it's a culmination of that effort, and we're just really proud.
Now, this has been here since 1950, it's been here 58 years?
That's correct. And what you see here is both a continuation of the tradition of the original museum in many of the rooms, as well as a new museum. So I think a lot of people in Orange County that have a mental picture of what the Bowers Museum is going to be quite surprised, not only to see a bigger museum, but also to see how we treated the old museum. It's really gotten a fantastic historical touch.
Now, a little bit of background. The museum is actually owned by the city of Santa Ana, but run through the foundation that Mr. Bowers left.
That's right. The Bowers family left the money to build the original museum, and we made a commitment as a community that we would keep it open and we would operate it. We have subsequently delegated a lot of the authority to run the museum to the Bowers Museum Board of Directors, and they've just done a wonderful job of rallying the private sector. So even though it was public dollars that went into doing the renovation that you see today, it was all the private dollars that went into all of the exhibits and many of the fine points that make it such a beautiful museum.
Well, thank you very much for being here on this great day.
My pleasure.
Just tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the museum.
I've been involved with the museum for 15 years. I came to a coffee one afternoon and fell in love with the place, and I've been here ever since, one way or another, either just as a volunteer or being on the board.
Now, we're standing in a foyer here. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, it's kind of special to me. The foyer was named in honor of my husband, my late husband.
Dr. John E. Carlin, Family Foyer?
Yes.
And tell us about the name recognition contributions.
Well, we had an opportunity to make a donation to Bowers Museum, and there were certain levels offered for certain naming opportunities. And I chose one of them and asked that it be named on my husband's name.
That's wonderful. And this is the main foyer as we come in.
Well,
Museum?
it is the foyer, yes, but it does lead into the Galleria, which was funded by the Leo Friedman Foundation.
Now, how many opportunity naming foyers or sections are there?
Every gallery in the museum had an opportunity for someone to name it. We have the Fleur family naming the Citrus Gallery. We have David and May Sue naming the Asian Art Gallery. We have Ruth Segerstrom naming the Orange County History Gallery.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being with us today, and good luck on all the work that you're doing on the Board of Governors.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Patricia, tell us a little bit about your responsibilities as being Director of Development.
Well, actually, I consider it a fun job because it's multifarious. Not only do we do, obviously, fundraising, grant development, we ask for large contributions to work with the budget, but we also manage the membership program, manage PR and marketing, work on programming for the membership, trips, related activities, and integrate our program with the curatorial part of the museum. So it's really fun.
Well, now, you mentioned about the members. Tell us when you started a year ago, what it was like then versus now.
Well, we were down to about 175 members because the museum had been closed for quite a while. And we're very excited to say that we're up to 1,600 on the day before the opening. And our goal is to have 2,000 by the end of the month, which obviously we'll make.
Oh, that's fantastic. Tell me about what goes into the development of the different programs that you have.
Well, they're all very different. For example, in terms of membership, we're looking for ways to tie people into the museum and make this their place. We were at a dinner last night where someone introduced one of the directors as the director of her museum, and she was a member of our museum. That's what we're looking for, because the museum does offer wonderful opportunities, not only for learning, but for entertainment and for adventure. And so part of my job is matching that. You know, I can provide something wonderful for people who are interested. And the mission statement of the Bowers is outstanding for this kind of thing, because since we're cultural art of the Americas, the Pacific Rim, and Africa, we're talking about people and places. We're talking about the roots and the origins of peoples and their cultures. And so there's just so many things you can do with that.
Now, are you in charge of the docents and the tour guides and the lecture series?
No, the docents and the tour guides and education is actually under the curatorial and research department. So we interface with that department. We do the lectures together. We set up programs together.
Well, you have some beautiful things on display behind us while we're speaking. Tell us about this Maasai chief that you have in the picture.
He's one of our special friends in Tanzania. We just took a group from the museum to Africa on a safari to research Mary Leakey's rock art. And this is someone that we met on an earlier trip to Africa, and he's very important to the mission of this museum, because if you'll notice, in his ear he has an aspirin bottle. And the reason that's significant is this is important to him. And why it's important to all of us is it shows that tribal life is really in its twilight time. And most of the parts of the world are going through a tremendous technological change. They're being impacted by technology to such a degree that they have to change their whole lifestyles. And so the kind of art that we used to associate with some of our tribal life is not going to be around anymore. And this museum is a repository for fine arts of indigenous people. So we're not just talking about, crude things that people might make to use in their villages, but things that are also imbued with the love and ceremony of the people and are often beautiful pieces of fine art.
A lot of tradition.
A lot of tradition. In the future, I want to help this museum take its place as a world-class museum because we feel its mission as the time has come. We feel there's a really not only a beautiful aesthetic part to cultural art, but there's a healing component because I think it helps us all to understand each other if we know more about each other.
I'm now sitting with the director of the Bowers Museum here in Santa Ana, who previously was with the Los Angeles Museum of Natural History.
That's correct.
Dr. Keller, tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're anticipating here with the museum after this grand opening.
Well, I anticipate that with the new Bowers Museum and the wonderful new facilities to bring the world to Santa Ana. And I think the opening exhibits exemplify this very well. Since we're opening with one of the largest or most important exhibitions of pre-Columbian gold to ever come from Bogota, Colombia to the United States. And in the gallery next to that, we are highlighting 3,000 years of Chinese art from the Chang Foundation in Taipei, China. And then beside that, we have a major exhibition of oceanic art, and beside that, African art. So you can see that we're bringing the world cultures here to Orange County in a very big way.
Now, the different items that you have represented, you have basically 8 to 12 traveling pieces or traveling sections, as it were?
Well, we have actually 4 large traveling exhibits, and we will be bringing 8 to 12 here to Santa Ana every year. In fact, these galleries are booked already through 1995.
My goodness. How long does a particular exhibit remain here at the museum?
Generally speaking, it's 3 months, and 2 to 3 months. And we're very pleased because our pre-Columbian gold exhibit, which is, I think, the premier exhibit of our opening, will be here for 6 months.
Wow, that's great. So it actually gives the opportunity of the people in Orange County, Los Angeles County, adjacent areas, to be able to visit every quarter and see something different.
Well, hopefully even more than every quarter, and that is exactly right. Always a reason to come back to the Bowers.
And I know you have some 85,000 artifacts?
In our permanent collection, yes, that's correct.
So there's always something that you can put on display.
Exactly. But overlooking the grounds, we have the balcony, which was closed up. It was glass enclosed for offices for about the last 15 years. We've opened them up, and it's a great place to have lunch.
Really? And it can serve up to 80 people for private parties?
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about the statue, Juan Cabrillo.
Juan Cabrillo is part of the original statue that was for the fountain, which was Mrs. Bowers Memorial Fountain. It was part of the building that was put together in the 30s.
And how about the statue of the Indian that we see prominently in the entrance here?
That we're very proud of. It's on loan from Glen Green Galleries in Santa Fe. We'd like to purchase it eventually, but it's by Alan Hauser, who's a Native American sculptor in Santa Fe, who just received the American Medal of the Arts from President Bush in the White House in July. So we're very proud to have actually 9 Alan Hauser sculptures here right now.
Well, give an appeal out to those that are watching to come down to see the museum.
Well, please come to the Bowers Museum. If you had been here before, you're going to see the old Bowers looking better than it's ever looked, and around it you're going to see a brand new museum that will make anybody proud.
And if I can quote you, he is quoted as saying, "It'll knock your socks off."
That's right, it will.
Currently I'm standing with Anna Maria Falchetti and Armand Lebay. Mr. Lebay, tell us a little bit about where we're standing.
We're standing at the beginning of the Tribute to the Gods, master treasures of the gold of the Museo del Oro, Bogota, an exhibit of 330 pieces of pre-Columbian art, 300 of which are gold artworks. And we are standing at the entrance in the section which is associated with gold works from a region of Colombia known as Calima.
And we have Ana Maria, who is the assistant curator of the museum in Bogota. Tell us a little bit about some of your favorite selections here.
Well, if we are standing here, we are seeing some of the pieces of the oldest tradition of gold work of Colombia that goes back well before the times of Christ. Well, it's interesting to see that the technology they used, they favored to use high-grade gold, very pure, to hammer this sort of pieces. This is a pectoral, a breastplate.
The museum that you're from in Bogota, you must have a much larger collection. What type of a collection do you have there? How many pieces in your collection?
Well, nowadays we have up to 33,000 objects.
33,000?
Of gold. Well, it has been growing up since it was founded in 1939. In this moment, it's a quite huge collection with pottery objects, all of them representative of the pre-Columbian culture.
Anna Maria, can you explain a little bit about this exhibit, the little pieces and the jewelry in the middle?
Well, yes, this comes from another area of Colombia, because one of the things is the variety of gold work in Colombia. This one, the Tolima area, one of the main characteristics is the way they used to stylize the human figure, for example, to get a very schematic representation. And in the middle is a necklace with a fantastic animal. I mean, it's a mythological animal. All the aspects of their mythology, of all their beliefs, were represented in these pieces. This is a special animal.
The small figures off to the left and right?
This is another one. It must be a mixture of different animals, mythical animals. I mean, because in mythology the animals can be transformed one into the other and have some composite animals like these.
And these were found where?
These were found in graves too, but it's in Tolima area, that is in the valley of the Magdalena River. That is the main river of Colombia, and that was the main way of communication of these tribes in pre-Columbian times.
Looking at right now, starting with the headpiece up on the top.
Well, the total composition in this case are pre-Columbian artworks that are ascribed to the Tairona culture, one of the most sophisticated of all of the pre-Columbian cultures in Colombia. These people were located in northern Colombia in an area called the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, in the foothills of the mountains where the city of Santa Marta is now. We are looking at a ceramic head from the Tairona culture. If you look very carefully at the top of the head, you'll see that there is a bird form located at the top of the head, forming a kind of a animal emblem, the associations of which we are not exactly clear. Below that is a necklace composed of gold elements that are in the form of feline claws, probably a jaguar claw, and beaded elements that are carved out of carnelian, a stone common to the region, but delicately and very exquisitely composed.
Thank you very much. Dr. Janet Baker, you are the Chief of Education, is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell me a little bit about what your job entails here at the museum.
Well, I've newly arrived here 4 weeks, and my job will be to work in both adult and children's education at the Bowers Museum, and that's a very important mission in the museum. Since the Bowers deals primarily with cultures and art from the pre-Columbian to the Pacific Rim to American Indian, it's primarily dealing with cultures that are outside our own Western or European tradition. And what we hope to do is to impart some kind of cultural understanding and context to the public about what they are seeing in the museum here, putting the objects in their cultural context, explaining their meaning and significance to the indigenous culture.
Now, I know you have a group that is available for lecturing at schools and tours.
Yes. One of the most important groups here at the Bowers Museum is our Docent Guild. And that is a group of people who volunteer their time, their efforts, and their diverse talents to helping with education of the public. They lead tours through the exhibitions. They also do outreach programs in which they go to senior citizen groups, into the public and private schools, as well as to a range of public organizations and civic groups. They lecture, they hold hands-on classes, and in that way they also bring the arts outside the museum.
I thought it was really great. I was reading about the mobile museum, the 40-foot on-wheel museum, as well as the trunks that you have that you carry to some of these lectures.
At the moment, the mobile museum is presently undergoing a renovation. Now that the building is restored, we can think in terms of restoring the mobile museum. But we do have traveling trunks, which are collections of artifacts or objects based around a certain theme or culture. And accompanying them are photographs and teachers' guidebooks, handbooks, and other materials which allow those objects to be a kind of mini exhibition. They can be loaned out to the schools for 2 weeks, and the teachers can put up an exhibition in the school and then link that material to their regular school curriculum.
That's fantastic. It sounds like there's an awful lot to learn here.
There's an awful lot to learn, much to be done, but yet there's a wonderful foundation already existing here that we can build on. So I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Spencer, can you tell us a little bit about some of the artifacts here?
We've chosen Chinese ceramics, that's pottery and porcelain, and Chinese paintings. The Chinese paintings are mostly of the last 100 or so years, but the ceramics go back 5,000 years. And we've chosen, I hope, important pieces for each reign, each dynasty in China, about 10 dynasties in all. And we've specially selected them with a view to what we hope will be of interest to people in America.
And how many pieces are in this selection today?
We have 55 items of pottery or porcelain and 36 paintings.
And how long will they be on display here at the museum?
For, let me think, about 3 months. Yes.
And how large is the museum in Taipei?
We talk in terms of ping in China. We're 450 ping, which is about, I think, 15,000 square feet. Yes.
And how many pieces do you have there in total?
Thousands. But we rotate them. We don't have the same pieces on display more than about 6 months.
Do you have a favorite in the selection here today?
I've got several favorites, but one of them is the tiger pillow.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's a hard pottery pillow which was used by people in the Song dynasty and the succeeding dynasties to sleep on. Because at that time, women would lacquer their hair, and they didn't want to spoil their hairstyle when they were asleep, so they slept on these hard pillows.
Oh my goodness.
They didn't turn from side to side, they just stayed there with the back of their head on the hard pillow, and it preserved their hair.
Sounds like an Excedrin headache to me.
Well, apparently it was the normal thing, and people still sleep on hard wooden pillows sometimes in Japan and Taiwan.
Joe, can you tell us a little bit about the store and what all you have here?
Well, the gallery store is a place to shop, a place to find the things similar to the items that we carry. They're not artifacts in a museum sense of the word, but there are artifacts that we sell. They're pieces that are Colombian gold. They're things from Africa, from Asia, and from the Americas that complement the kinds of things that the museum shows. Any kind of an ethnic influence from the areas that we represent, it's the best things you can find on the subject. Our Asian collection seems to be the favorite of the folks who come in. We have lots of ceramics and wood pieces from Japan, China, and throughout Asia. This is the toy section. We have games, dolls from all over the world for kids to purchase, and they're pretty reasonably priced. The African section represents the most interesting pieces we have. We have more of the African pieces than others. They are ceremonial pieces for the most part. Some of them are tourist stuff, and some of them are very expensive collector's items. We have T-shirts representing all cultures around the world, a variety of prices, including the Bowers Museum T-shirt with the logo for the museum. It's a very primitive logo that represents many cultures. We have jewelry from lots of cultures around the world. The gold pieces in front of us are copies of the pre-Columbian gold that's found in our collection. The largest selection of jewelry we have is the Native American Indian jewelry. We have from many vendors, but Navajo and primarily from New Mexico.
And next to me now is the curator of Native American art, and you are Paul Apodaca.
Apodaca, that's correct.
And you're Mexican Navajo?
That's right, I'm Navajo and Mexican. My father is Navajo, my mother is Mexican.
So that's appropriate that you would be the curator of these particular pieces that we're going to be looking at.
I hope so. I've lived here in the county since 1954, and I've been associated with the Bowers Museum for about 13 years. And my own cultural background, as well as my love of Orange County history and the Southern California area, has made Bowers Museum and me a good blending.
You know, before we get into some of the beautiful artifacts that are in this particular room, I know that Charles Bowers and Ada Bowers had their home here, which is the Victorian home, in 1932, and then they moved it into a museum.
Well, the house was here on the land because Charles and Ada Bowers were orange growers that had a wood-structured Victorian house on the property. The house was raised in order to build this museum. When Charles died, he left money and a will that said when Ada died that the land and the money would be turned over to the city of Santa Ana to build a fireproof museum.
Yes, and they had no children, so that was appropriate to leave it to the city.
Exactly. Actually, they said that if the city of Santa Ana didn't wish to accept the museum, that they would then offer it to Orange, and after that to Anaheim, and if they chose to refuse to accept the museum, it would go to the first city with more than 50,000 inhabitants. Luckily, though, Santa Ana chose to accept it.
This man thought ahead.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so the Victorian home was in 1932, and then it was taken down, and the museum was built in 1936, the original one.
Well, no, the museum was built in 1932. The house stood here up until the time that it was raised, and it was raised actually probably around 1931, and then the building here was built in 32, and it opened to the public in 36.
I see. Do you have any idea how many artifacts were shown back then?
Well, that was the reason why there was a 4-year gap there. When the museum was first built in 1932, there was literally nothing to show in it. So it took 4 years to gather together a number of artifacts, cases, etc., and open the museum up. When it first opened up, there was only a few hundred things that were owned by the museum.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the room that we're in, maybe the headdress behind us.
This is the Arts of Native America Gallery. When the museum first opened in 1936, this room was used to display Native American artifacts, and right behind us, right here, is a Northern Plains style eagle-feathered headdress. This one is actually made by Chippewa Indians, but it's very typical of the type of headdresses that were worn on the northern central plains of the North American continent.
Can you tell us a little bit about the ceiling here in this particular room? It's quite fascinating.
The ceilings in the Bowers Museum are some of the wonderful features of the building, that's for sure. In this room, there are Art Deco design stamps or stencils that are executed on the ceiling. Because the museum was built in the 1930s, WPA project funds included many artists and artisans who put many wonderful touches to the building that otherwise would never have been brought to it. Because of the period of time, Art Deco was all the rage, and the designs on the ceiling are not actually Indian designs, but they are Art Deco designs inspired by Indian designs. So people can come here and see authentic Art Deco and see some of the influence, if you will, of Native America on the art scene of the 1930s.
Well, let's move on to some of the early Californian memorabilia.
Sure. What we're looking at is the Transportation Landing exhibit. Transportation was very important in bringing the new Americans into California once California had become part of the United States in 1849. We have examples of stagecoaches, which brought people to California as well as moved them around. Railroad trains, which helped to bring people into the state. And the connection of railroad lines in California helped to solidify the economy of the state. We also have a model of an American clipper, the Flying Cloud, which was the fastest boat ever to sail along the coast of California. We're in the Golden State Gallery, which documents the history of the building of the American cities. The first American city in Orange County is the city of Anaheim, which was also the home of an early Polish colony and the home of Madame Modjeska. The central cities of Santa Ana and Orange are next documented. And the county's economy was solidified with the creation of the citrus industry with its decorative orange crate labels, and a slideshow here that shows people the activities that went on in packing houses and orange groves. The incorporation of the county in 1889 is next documented in the room. In the mid-20th century, the military became a very important factor in Orange County with the creation of the largest Army training facility in the United States, which was the Santa Ana Army Air Base. And by the late 1950s and early 1960s, the electronics industry had its birth here in Southern California and Orange County. Hughes Aircraft became the single largest private employer in Orange County.
We've had a wonderful time here at Bowers Museum in Santa Ana. There are some wonderful things to see, treasures, artifacts, and early America. Come down and visit your museum here at 2002 North Main Street in Santa Ana. The hours are 10 to 5, and they're open Tuesday through Sunday. This is Fabie Combs. Hope to see you on location.